this video I'm going to show you how to make a snap block bag. We've all got old tape measures where they've got scuffs along the edges, and it's actually quite nice to recycle them. Pull out the end of the tape measure, cut them into strips of the sizes you want for your bag. But the recycling of fabrics, old jeans, fabric offcuts, we've all got so many fabric offcuts, and you can make something out of that. Anything, a piece of clothing, you'd be amazed at what you can turn it into to recycle it. So if you've watched some of my earlier videos, you know I'm a retired interior designer. I've taught thousands of students to make curtains, blinds, cushions with my online courses. If you're interested, I'll put a link in the description below. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a snap block bag. Keep watching to the end. I have a handy hint. If, like me, you stab yourself with a pin, ouch. Let's get started. I'd like to share with you today how I make my popper bag, which is the little poppers that you can get, which are these little things, and then you go snap on that and it opens. But today I'm actually going to show you how to do it with tape measures that have gone wrong. So what we have here is our main sort of longer bit of fabric, which is much longer than the face fabric. This is a backing fabric, but I like to use a nicer fabric which is plain instead of a lining, because it's important, because at the front we're going to use that to have our sort of snazzy bit on there, so it makes logical sense to use two face fabrics. If you haven't got that and you have a plain piece of lining, it's just as nice, but I've chosen it this way today. Two little squares, the measurements will be on the screen shortly, and here we go. So iron on, and you're placing your fabric on top of the backing fabric, and again you have noticed I've got a nice board here, bit of MDF, a little bit of padding, line it, staple it on the back and put a face fabric on it. It's a nice little go-to for the iron when you're doing things, because it's heat reflected and it brings the heat back up onto your fabric. So here we have the two bits of fabric. We've got our main patterned face fabric facing up, and then we've got our lining or our second fabric facing down. That is a very important part if you're using different fabrics, otherwise you'll be on the wrong side. So with the ruler, we want to be 5 centimeters bigger on the secondary fabric, and our main fabric is the shorter one, and it's 5 centimeters top and bottom bigger on that back fabric. So then what you're going to do is you're going to pull that over to the point where your other fabric joins on, and you're just going to run the iron along there. That's my little iron. And what that's going to do is, you can see it's run along the fold where that edge is, and by pulling that over like that, that's going to be our contrast to the front of the fabric. So again, do the same at the bottom. You can usually feel with your fingers that that secondary fabric is underneath, and if you're careful and run your finger along like that, with some fabrics it works quite nicely. I've actually got like a nice fold there, so I can see that fold, and I can see my edge of my fabric is on that fold. Now's the time to put the heat on it. So just running it along. You can use one of these, which are really good, which is my go-to, and just press down where the heat is. That helps it, especially with the board and the padding on, because it helps disperse that heat back onto the fabric. And again, I've got a really nice fold line, which you can see there. So once we've done that, what we're now going to do is just bring it back over and just turn the end of that fabric just a little bit. If you need to help yourself not sort of see it level, you can put your little clamps on there. I do everything by eye, but again, I've been doing this for years, and you literally do that so you're comfortable you've turned the same amount on there, and then just run the iron, take the clip off. So again, I'll show you that. So I take the clip off, because it's already folded, just run that steam along that line, and I'll show you that bit when it's done. And because you've now got that all set, you're going back over to your fold line, and this is where you'll need some pins. Put some pins in. And make sure you're nice and level, because I've got a pattern here to run by, so I don't want to go to just run that pin along there just to hold it. Make sure you don't go right through to your little press board, but it's just enough to hold the two bits together, and I'll hold it up and show you. So that's then nicely done, plain at the back because we've turned it over, and we've got that nice fold line then, the fold line there. So again, same with this side, turn it back over, press along with your fingers. Really scratch it in and press. Most fabrics will actually bend quite nicely for you and give a little faint line. And again, I have got that there. So now it's bending over quite naturally. Put your iron on it, run it along that little seam, that little edge. Right, so what I'm going to do is hold that up and show you the stage that we've got to at the moment. So then we're going to take it over to the machine. I've got an industrial machine over there. If you've got a little domestic machine, no problem. And what you're going to do is you're going to machine right along on this edge to hold that in place. Because don't forget, this is where your ruler is going to slide into place inside here. But for now, we're going to machine that together. So we've got to that stage. I'm going to pull that over and slide it out of the way just for a minute before our next step. And then we've got our little squares that I'll show you what we do with those. So you fold them over and press. And we do both at the same time. Fold it over and press. Oh, there it is. Oh, hiding it. I'll move that out of the way, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So these little squares are going to be your little go-to handles that are running along that seam, which I'll show you. So now you've folded it in half, then folded corner to corner, so you're going to make a triangle. It just makes it easier to have that other fold line to work the fact that you've actually got a square. Otherwise, if it isn't a square, it's not going to work. So you've got the square like that, then you're folding it corner to corner and press. If you haven't got an exact square, you'll have an oblong bit and it just will not fold how we want it to be as a little diamond. So, and then fold back again. So we've got this doubled over here. I'm slightly out there, but we can trim that in a minute. And you're literally going to press again, and you'll see why in a minute. If you remember the bag that I showed you to start with. Fold that over and press. Now what you can do, I've got these little pegs which are really, really handy instead of pins all the time, because sometimes pins get in the way. They're quite sharp. You end up with pin stab marks. You're just going to run that along that edge, because this is the edge which is two bits of fabric, so it just keeps them level here. Otherwise what will happen is you'll go to machine and that will just move out the way, which we don't want. So you're just going to pop that back on there, pop that back on there. You don't need to do that side because that's a solid fold, so that's not going to move, whereas these two little babies, they need to be completely clamped together. Not right to the end because we need to machine here. So that's all we're doing there. And then what we're going to do, we're going to bring our piece of prepared bag that we've already done in place here. So before I start to pin along there, you're going to find the middle of the cloth here and put a little pin. So in this case, so I'm going to put that there. And what you're going to do is just slide that underneath there. So when we start to machine along here, this is our little handle with the bag when we pull out the clamps. So that being in place, little contrast bits, same sort of colouring. You can put a coloured piece in, plain, different colours. So these are quite sweet. And that'll go in there. So then we're going to go to the machine. I'm going to pin that now. Pin it right across here, right across there. But do make sure that is directly in the middle. So each point is running down that centre here. And then we'll take it to the machine. Put your hand underneath, push in. These little glass headed pins are brilliant because they're extra long. Oops, quite fiddly. They are extra long, but you've got a nice big round glass ball, and they're really quite fine as well, so they go through quite nicely. Put that in there. There we go. So if I hold that up, you can see that's all pinned and ready to go on the machine. I've machined along that bit where we pinned. So again, you can see now with our handles, they're solid because they've been pinned and machined into place. So we can now remove our pegs. And what we're going to do next is our tape measures. Now, any unused or used, tape measure that's got little nicks in it, or you want to throw it away, just take it apart. If you can get the tape out, and then make sure you clamp it, not like I did, and I didn't clamp it, and the whole reel of tape measure, when I cut the first piece off, went round and round, I was inside, not to be seen again. So we had to smash it open to get the whole load of the tape measures that we can make use of, so it's recycling them. So here we have, I've cut literally with scissors, an old pair of scissors, you cut the round shape so that you haven't got any sharp edges, and I put electrical tape just over the edges, as you can see, and that protects the fabric from being cut, because tape measures can be really, really spiteful. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slide that into this little entrance here, and when we slid it in, and we can see, we do that one the same, slide it into that edge, so you're actually going to have the numbers facing up, so you can see it that way, and then you've got your two edges there. Cut that piece of fabric off, cotton. So you've got your two rounded bits here on the very back of your fabric, not on the face. So you've actually got the rounded bit, I don't know if you can see from there, if I just slide that out again for you to see. You've got the numbers facing the back of the fabric. So the plain bit is at the front here. So when you've got, to pull that bit out as well, you'll be able to understand it a little bit more. So when you've got them like that, and you're going to close your bag up, because it's got a natural curve, the two curve ends here actually are together. If I was to do that way round, what's going to happen is you've got this big gap here because they're round. So by doing it that way, with the numbers facing, both numbers facing the back of the cloth, basically both numbers facing inside the bag when it's finished, and then you get that natural close here. So that's what we're going to do. So just for your reference, this is a bag that's done the wrong way round at the top. Remember me saying to you about the tape rule and the curvature on which way round it goes. It still works, it still opens and closes, but if you did have anything in there of money, coins, little bits of makeup, they'd actually fall out. So you slide it in so that when you've got them both slid in, you've got your natural seam allowance, which is there. So you've got enough to be able to machine. Be careful you don't go too near the tape measure, because you will break a needle. My machine's an industrial machine and it will actually go through the tape measure, but we don't, that's not the aim. You want to have that little gap there, so you can feel it, and you can sort of put a pin there if you, or a little pencil mark if you're worried. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the machine, and then where I've got that to the top, I want that very sharp part of the tape measure. Let's take it out again just to show you. I don't want it floating around at the bottom because this is too flappy. I need that to be pushed right to the top, and you can feel it with your fingers. Push it, literally, and if you want to, you can put a pin in like I'm going to show you. So by doing that, that's holding that tape sharp to that edge. That enables me to do my second machine line literally as close as I can to my pins. That holds that tape up in place. So we'll do that on both sides. It's quite fiddly, but you actually get into it. You can actually feel right through the fabrics to be able to push it up, and then the pin goes through. Happy days. If your pin goes through, it's a bit loose, your pin's not gone to the very bottom of the tape. So if I put that pin in down here, I can see that my fingers are moving the fabric. So pushing right up, put the pin in, and that's as tight as you can see. It's actually given a nice sharp edge. If you've got a loopy edge, you know your tape's not up as far as it needs to be. Back over to our bench, and you can clearly see now that I've put in the second line here. The reason we do the second line last is because we need this in place and secure with our measurements, and you can see the pattern's absolutely spot on, and again the two match together. To do that and that at the same time is just too risky to getting things unlevel, because obviously we need that to be absolutely spot on level. So we've put our tape measure in, which is now inside nice and tight, and I've done a second line and I've run it as close as I can to the tape measure inside, and by pinning it like we did and feeling it with the finger, if you're worried, just keep going along in front of the machine needle and the foot and putting a pin down. If the pin goes down, the machine needle will go down. Now that's actually a really tight line here where the tape measure's up as far as possible, and the same on that one. It's really rock solid. If I had it too loose, the fabric up here would just be, it wouldn't look right and it would be too flimsy. So there's that outside of our bag. So you can tidy up all your cottons. I'll do it when we join it together. So what we do then is we place that together, and don't worry about it looking like that, because don't forget we're now working on the outside of the inside, so those don't look together. If we've made the bag and we've seamed it and we've got our finished product, the zipper, the tape measure should look like that. So it's actually a strong edge. So remember the first, so it's over, it's like a little over look, numbers at the front. So if I do it that way again and show you, when we're machining it, it looks terribly unwell because we've got this big gap, but that's correct because we're going to join this together on the seam here, and again we're going to put pins into here, this bit here, right on the edge of that tape measure, and that's our guide for machining without hitting that tape rule. Don't worry about this bit being a bit unlevel, but what we're trying to aim to do is get them as level as possible, and the rest will be cut off. And we're going to pin that one, and then we'll be machining all the way down there and cutting off the surplus. Oops a daisy, evidence I have a casualty. It's empty now. I've managed to run out of blood, as I mentioned earlier, but don't panic if you do anything like that, because if it goes onto your fabric, the little tip is, and this might sound disgusting, you spit on your own fabric, and it has to be your spit, nobody else's, and a baby wipe, and it actually dissolves the blood and gets rid of it. So I heard that little tip a long time ago. See, look, I'm empty now, so I'm risking not risking blood on there. But if you do get a bit of blood, don't forget, spit on it. Right, so now I've pinned that side, I'm going to come across to here and hopefully not repeat the process of putting a pin through my finger, because that's exactly, I went that way with one pin. I'll show you what I did so you don't do it. And when I went to go that way, you can see what happened. I just stabbed myself. So, but again, it's all part of the course. There you go. So we've got a pin in one way, pin in the other, and that stops it from coming apart. I'm going to go back to the machine. So now we're back at the bench. You can see that we've machined the seam down either side, and being very careful. I'm as close as I can to the actual tape measure. And then we're going to, all the bits of untidy bits, we're actually going to slice those off. So I'm going to go in quite nicely and just cut that off. So we've got a nice neat edge there. And on that corner, just tape a tiny, because I've reinforced it, a tiny little bit off that corner. So when we turn it through, we get a sharp edge. You can see what I've cut off. So again, all the untidy bits, as far as the corner as you can, the edge, up, all the way up to the top. It's quite thick, and there you go. That one doesn't need it, I've gone quite close. And there you have it. So now is the fun part, because we're going to turn through. So we're going to go through. It's pretty easy because the tape measure is quite flexible. Put your thumb and finger the other side on the corner and push. And I've got a nice little point there because I cut that corner off. Go to the other side. The tape measure comes a little bit unruly here because it's a little bit stiffer. Finger and thumb, push, and there's my corner. And then you just literally, by magic, the tape measure is quite flexible. And there we have it, look at that. And then there's your bag opener. You can hear it's actually quite strong. So you push down inside, make sure all those bits are in there. Take off all your scaggy bits of cotton. There we go. You can run the iron back over it to give it a nice edge. Now there's your bag. This is how I make them, and I find they're really quite neat and tidy. You can add little gizmos, you can put a little key ring under that seam, a little jewel under there, but whatever colour coordinated fabric here, don't forget there's your little finger in, and it's the opposite end, which is quite a nice little feature, and it pulls it in and out, or it's just there. It just saves you machining all the way around that, because I think it looks untidy. I like to see it quite quirky. And there you have your bag. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.